welcome to the Flats Class Podcast. The podcast is Captain CA's Blacklist, and today I have number 10 on the blacklist. I have Mr. Eric Bachnik, the president of L&S Baits. To you, Mirrolure. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. How long have we known each other? We've known each other a long time. It's got to be 20 years or so, maybe longer. It's probably longer than that.
I bet it's closer to 26, 27 years.
Yeah.
CA.
We didn't have gray hair then.
No,
yeah, we looked totally different.
You're right.
I watched a movie last night with my wife that had Richard Dreyfuss and Chevy Chase in it, and I go, that's who my friends are now.
Mm-hmm, exactly. Yeah, so true.
All right. Well, how long has Mirrolure been in business? This is one of those podcasts that I want to share with the audience to let people know that typically we want to talk about how you catch them and stuff, but with you, I mean, this is a long, storied history, this brand.
I'm so honored. My grandfather, back in 1937, started L&S Bait Company, and ironically, he started it in the freshwater market, making freshwater lures in Kankakee, Illinois.
Really?
Yep, exactly. And then, developed quite a few different lures, even a lure called the Bassmaster. I wish he would have trademarked that many moons ago, but it was a jointed product. He made it in several different sizes as well. He had a pike master, a panfish master used for smaller fish. And he got the freshwater line going pretty well in the 40s and early 50s. Then he decided, hey, I want to move to Florida. Mm-hmm. And then he started focusing.
Like everybody does.
Exactly. He wanted to get out of those cold winters and moved down here to Florida and started designing the saltwater baits, the famous 52, TT.
And they all live large to this very day. In fact, many of not only my peers, but my clients and our customers, they all believe that Mirrolure is a saltwater DNA company and always has been. So that's news to a lot of people. So that's a really interesting story. 1937.
It is, and now we have a couple models that people will use for bass, some of our topwater stuff, but realistically, we're known as a lure used 100 miles from the coast, all coastal waters from pretty much the Chesapeake to Brownsville, Texas is pretty much our market for Mirrolure.
That's a range.
Yeah.
That's a serious range there. Well, something that, the reason why I've coined that handle for you, the Redneck Exec.
I like it.
10.
I really like it.
It's so fitting. Yeah. It's just so fitting. You're not a corporate guy. Mm-mm. You're really not. You do everything old school. I mean, you walk around with pens in your pockets.
Yep.
You're not sitting in front of a computer typing.
Nope.
You're not a typer. And the culture here is that way too.
Yeah.
Everyone that works here fishes and totally invested in it. They've all been here forever, it seems like.
I got an absolutely great staff. I truly do.
You do.
And we all get along well. And, you're right. I come in, I put my stuff on the desk, and I spend 99% of the day on the floor walking around and, looking at orders and talking to customers, maybe doing a little selling here and there. And some design work too.
Yeah. And the thing is, here's what's interesting to me. Is everyone has the impression that Mirrolure is this giant mega company. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of not that way at all, really, is it?
It's not. It really is. We've got a much larger name than what the actual facility is, but we do produce quite a few lures, in a given year, but it's not one of these that is we use machinery. Yes, we use some, but it's not robotic or anything like that. Every Mirrolure is hand-built.
Yeah. And hand-tuned, hand-tested, everything that way.
Yeah.
Your peers, guys like Daniel Nussbaum from Z-Man, guys like Dave Boltice now, who's the CEO at Pure Fishing, they all have very high marks and kind words about Mirrolure. You'd be surprised how well respected that brand is. Everyone says it's amazing. Mm-hmm. It's just amazing. I mean, because here you're surviving in a world that's dominated in saltwater by soft baits. I mean, just dominated. There's no one that can say, well, hard baits have a real value in saltwater. Mm-hmm. Yet everybody's tackle box has Mirrolures. I mean, everybody's. My grandfather, my father, we all had Mirrolures. I mean, that's what we throw. You don't hear that about other brands. They make saltwater hard baits, but they have to make all this other stuff to survive. Where even though you did start some soft baits and integrated it into your brand, it's really
it's still very minuscule compared to
Yeah,
the
the
actual
hard-
Mirrolure hard bait sales.
the
That's
hard
absolutely right. Yeah.
That's it. I mean, and the Redneck Exec, the thing really sticks with you because some of the things that folks don't understand is, well, you not only fish bass club tournaments with your daughter. I mean, you're very invested in that. You fish a lot of the trout tournaments and local tournaments here where you donate stuff.
Yeah.
But you even do a little bit of mullet fishing.
Back in the day, I've actually put myself through college throwing some cast nets for mullet. That was
you
back in the
did.
early '80s, and we worked hard and saw a lot of good mullet fishing. That's for sure. So, yep, those were good old years.
They are, and I've seen you out in your boat before swinging that mullet net. I was like, you can take the boy out of the trailer, but you cannot take the trailer out of the boy.
I quit that back in the early '90s, and my body can't take that anymore.
Yeah, the back doesn't like it as much.
I still like throwing the old mullet net to get a round up, 15 or 20 for the smoker. But
that's
other
it.
than that, that's about it. I only want to throw it a couple times.
How many executives that are in the fishing industry know how to throw a mullet net and smoke mullet? I can tell you right now, you're probably it, Doug.
Yeah,
You are
probably
the man.
right. So,
All right, you have a twin brother.
I do. Frank.
Frank is one of the most well-known and well-regarded guides in Charlotte Harbor. He's old school too.
He is.
I mean, he's a throwback.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it.
He's a true throwback. He's never been interested in being a part of the brand in the sense that he's working here or anything like that. I mean, he's happy doing what he's doing.
He really does. He likes being his own boss. When he first graduated from college, he went to work retail, selling fishing lure at the Complete Mariner. I don't know if you remember that store. It was in the Holiday area. And he quickly found out that this retail wasn't for for him.
Oh, and knowing him, I know
exactly. So he went and moved on, and then he decided he did a TV show back. I guess it was the early '90s with a couple of the Miami Dolphin football players through Suzuki Outdoors. And back then, obviously, there was some fantastic fishing and big snook.
Oh yeah.
And he shot a couple really good shows, and that's what put him on the map. And now I can't even get a date, charter date from him. So he's got this
set
clique.
clientele.
He's got this clique of clients, and I mean they fight over the days, So I will say though, he uses live bait. He can throw a soft plastic, but on all of his charters, he definitely is throwing live bait.
He's one of him and Tommy Locke and those guys down there. They are the old school or old guard of Charlotte Harbor. I mean, there's the next generation, the Captain Rhett Morrises and things like that are every bit as good.
Yeah.
But when I think old school Boca Grande, I think Frank Bachnik and Tommy Locke.
Tommy Locke, they're two. They're close too. It's really neat.
Two guys I wouldn't want to meet on a dark night somewhere too.
You're right about that.
Get on the wrong side of them.
Nope.
So for years, there used to be a tagline that you had called the Record Setters. I mean, where did that come from? Was that because you guys dominated so many of the trout records?
We did have some world records. Nothing like Rapala. Rapala, is worldwide, and I think they own in the hard bait industry. I think they own probably the most. But we had a spin back there in the '80s where we had some world records set on large speckled trout. Mr. Fairbanks is the gentleman that I think caught several of those over on the East Coast. And anyways, that's where we coined the tagline, the Record Setters.
The Record Setters.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I remember buying the plugs at Mastery's Tackle when I was a kid, or 20 something, and that is a kid really. And I'd go down there, and Larry probably doesn't even remember that, but Larry would turn me on to the 5M Mirrolure and the 7M Mirrolure and tell me how to work them. And I would always, that was a big thing in my head when I would pick up the packaging for Mirrolure. I'd look at it, it says Record Setter. So I was like, this is a bait that catches fish, and it catches big fish.
And I want to set a record too.
Yeah, and it worked. It really worked on me.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the unique features that made Mirrolure Mirrolure. One was the insert is what separated it from everything else. When everyone else painted baits, you guys had the insert.
It's sort of iconic, the insert is built inside the lure. So the reflective foil, it doesn't scratch off. So
That's right.
my grandfather felt that's the best way to have it. I believe Cisco Kid was another company back in the day that did that. So I don't know whether my grandfather sort of borrowed that idea or what, but he certainly saw that would be a better way to build flash on a hard bait. And we still do it today.
Oh, I have customers, and I know you're too busy to read the social media platforms that I have, but I'll tag Mirrolure in most of them. And there was one on there today saying that I love Mirrolure because I said we were going to do this podcast. I love Mirrolure. It's like you only need to buy one Mirrolure. You just change the hooks out. You can use one Mirrolure for 10 years because the finish never comes off.
Yeah.
And that's what you know what, I'm going to make sure that we ask that question.
And nowadays, CA, we my grandfather, he just had silver and gold. That was the two insert materials. Well, look what we're offering now with insert materials. By changing the insert to a crushed pearl or a crushed chartreuse, it changes the look.
Totally.
You were mentioning that a few minutes ago, how it just changes the look of the whole plug.
Yeah, I mean, you guys, we're going to talk about that part of your business as well in a little bit, but. Another thing, the 3D eye. It's the red eye. I can remember when it was the yellow eye, but the 3D red eye, was that an original idea, or were they more in set or flat back in the day? But when did that come about?
My grandfather always felt that the 3D eye was important. Even back on the old Bassmasters back in the 40s, he would purchase doll eyes, which were the realistic eyes back then. He didn't have much to choose from, so he would use doll eyes back in the 40s and maybe even the 50s. And then in the 60s, he started molding the plastic eyes. And like you mentioned, it was clear, or a yellow amber color is what we called them. And then back in the early 80s, that's when we shifted. We had inventory. Imagine this, inventory of both amber colored baits and red-eyed colored baits. And that just got to be just so many SKUs that our customers wouldn't want to stock both. So at the time, it seemed like red was more popular. Folks felt that it was an injured bait fish look.
Right.
I don't know, but they sold well. So that's when we made the shift from the amber color eyes to the red colored eyes. So
when did the rattles come in, the sonic rattle sound? Because when I was using them, I can remember some baits that didn't have rattles at all. We would just call them 7Ms. Now they're MRs because we started adding rattles.
The old school, it was mid-'80s when we start doing, and again, then we double skewed people to guess. We had the non-rattler because we were selling so many of the non-rattler, we certainly wouldn't want to discontinue that and go to rattler because the way fishermen are. Some like it this way, some like it the other way.
That's
so
right.
It was the mid-'80s and we buy most of our rattles are they're a glass ball we put inside there. In some of the surface walkers, we use a stainless steel ball bearing, and that's what provides the weight near the tail.
And a little weight transfer, so it punches through wind a little bit better.
It casts a little bit better, sure. Helps castability. Yeah, that's a good point.
All right, I know you're probably tired. I mean, really tired of hearing this one. The nomenclature of the number system.
I know where you're going.
We used to put it on the bottom of the baits. It's like you'd pick up a bait like this and you'd hold it and you're like, oh, this is number 85, blah blah blah, and 11. Now we don't even do that anymore. It's like you have to kind of know what the baits are. But how did that get going?
So true. That's one thing that I wish that if I were to turn the clock back or speak with my grandfather or my deceased grandfather and say, why did you do this? But numbering the lures rather than names. Folks can remember a name like a Trout Master or Top Dog or a Mirrodine.
This is an 11, but we call it Woody Woodpecker.
Exactly.
It's a lot easier to remember this as Woody Woodpecker.
People can remember names, but he was designing lures so quickly that he just assigned numbers to them, and there's no rhyme or reason with the numbers at all, other than, for example, 52M, that's the model. M would be Mirrolure. R would be Rattler if it had a rattle to it.
That's right.
And then the color code preceded that. But, there was really no rhyme or reason. So, a good way to decide, whether you've got a floater or a sinker or, a surface walker is where the line attachment is positioned in the plug.
And that's what I teach people. I tell them that you came up with the whole number system, or your grandpa did, because he went out in the parking lot and started taking license plate numbers.
Exactly.
Well, they're unbelievably resilient. How many models are there? How many models do you think you are?
You're putting me on the spot now. I'm going to guess 42.
42 models.
Yeah, 42 current models right now. There might be a couple more. We just came out with a couple new baits, but around 42 different hard bait models.
And there's been models that have been discontinued over the years, probably twice as many.
And you know what folks say? Well, I can't believe you discontinued that. That was my absolute favorite number one. And what we tell them is, try to go buy a Model T from Ford right now.
That's right.
You're just not going to be able to get one.
And speaking of collections, I mean, there are a lot of collectors. I mean, one of our close friends, Bob Puccinelli, is one of your biggest collectors.
Oh, it's amazing. I call him for information on the company because he's so versed in L&S history.
I had a guy walk up to me at Gander Outdoors RV a couple of weeks ago in Ocala, Florida. He walks up and he shows me a Mirrolure, and I'm looking at it, and he goes, "Do you know which one this is?" And it looked old. I mean, the paint was knocked off it, and the hooks were dinged up and rusty a little bit like that. And it had a spinner on the back of it. And I go, "I do not know, but I'll make a text, and I'll find out for you after I take a picture. I'll find out in about 10 minutes." And Pooch didn't get back with me right away, but that guy came on our Instagram Live last night and said, "Did you ever find out what Mirrolure that was?" And it was the 95 and 97 MR, depended on the length, but it was the longer one.
It must have had the lead on the tail of that bait.
It had the lead on the tail, and it had the little spinner. Unless someone added that, it wasn't the prop spinner. It was like a Colorado Indiana blade or a Colorado blade.
Yeah, somebody added that too.
Yeah.
Well, the 95 and in the 97, they were pencil walkers, and we had an external lead on the tail. But with a big lead scare, in the fishing tackle industry, we had to discontinue that because we were just worried about it, you know. So,
well, I mean, it just proves that people they collect them. I mean, I've got a couple of older ones that I have hanging in my shop, but it's more of a deco thing than anything else in the showroom there, or that's what I call it. We don't even need to hang a Mirrolure banner at my house because we have so many Mirrolures behind us. So when we do pieces of video and stuff, it makes a really impressive wall. And I got people say, "Oh my God, your shop is amazing." And I go, "Well, I mean, we're talking about all these baits all the time. It's my job to try to teach you how to use each and every one of them. And I think we've done a good job, but I'm going to have to stop us here because we've got to pay a few bills." Okay. Stand by. Give us about 90 seconds because we want to give some love to some of our sponsors like the Florida Cracker Trading Company, Yeti, and Papas Pilar, everybody's favorite rum. So stand by. Part 2 coming right up with the Redneck Exec.
Captain CA here for Papas Pilar rum, one of my favorites. A robust flavor with a long finish. Papas Pilar had a passion for adventure, and he had a taste for a really good drink at the end of the day, just like myself. Try Papas Pilar. I think you'll enjoy it. Hey everybody, Captain CA here from Flats Class, and I want to introduce you to a brand that I fell in love with. It's the Florida Cracker Trading Company right here in Brooksville, Florida. In fact, they've got a world-class kitchen with awesome Southern cooking. They've got a tap room that has an unbelievable bourbon wall, and all the local taps are right here from Florida. You're not getting the standard domestic beers. And then their retail store is unbelievable. They've got branded apparel in there. They've got Yeti products. They've got Smith Optics. They've got fire disc cookers. You really need to check them out online. Check their social media platforms out, or better yet, come here and visit them.
All right, we're back with part 2 of number 10 on Captain CA's Blacklist here at the Flats Class Podcast, the Redneck Exec, Mr. Eric Bachnik of Mirrolure. All right, let's continue the conversation. We talked a little bit about the features and stuff. What I want to really know is big moments for the brand. What you can name 2 or 3 moments that really were game changers, and these might be the profiles that came out at a specific time, the right time in history, that really changed the game for, especially in the modern era.
Good question. A lot of things are coming to my mind right now, but the first one is back in '97. We had been working at that particular period, maybe early '90s, mid '90s. There was a lot of surface walkers on the market that were really, really making the play out there in the Texas market, even in Florida. The Zara Spook and the Super Spook and the jumping redfin, or the redfin was the one that was really popular in Texas.
Jumping mullet,
and our reps kept on saying, you guys really need to have a better surface walker. We had the small little 95 and 97 surface walker, the little pencil head, but it would not work well under rough conditions. It didn't have the buoyancy. So we had worked back in '96, we had accomplished a really nice, buoyant, loud surface walker, and the Top Dog. So we introduced that in '97, and that was the turning point that I see in the era that I've been with the company. Certainly, we could still be around making 52s, TTs, and 7s, but we would be sort of status quo. We'd be holding our own and having to purchase other products or sell other products the first year I remember selling, I think it was like 137,000 Top Dogs. Everyone that came in, we'd have customers just screaming, we didn't get ours. This store had theirs, so we had to allocate, the product. And it doesn't
things haven't changed either. There's still people mad at you because
that's
I'm not
true.
getting this,
So
I'm not getting
that was just like, you talk about hitting one out of a ballpark, and that was the Top Dog.
I knew you were going to say it for this reason. Because we have so many versions of that surface walker.
True.
I mean, when you look through the models, you've got he dogs, and you got Papa dogs, and you got the original Top Dog, and then you got the Top Dog Junior, and then it goes to the Top Pup, and then you go to the She Series. I mean, when you have that many sub models under a surface walker,
we dogged people to death, didn't we? We did.
So, but it worked. And they all had a place.
Everyone's a tool, and you do such a great job with Flats Class telling folks when you use those tools. I like a little larger baits. You love the subtle approach. You're fishing a lot of shallow water, CA, so you tell folks, you teach people that, that there is a purpose for each tool.
Yeah. And I've been amazed with some. I mean, when you use a full-size Top Dog Junior, which I rarely use, but if you're in 10 feet of water, you can pull a fish out of a 10-foot intercoastal channel or a residential canal, working it right down the middle of the canal, and a fish will come off the bottom to whack that.
Yeah. Or if there's a little bit more of a chop, just like what boat would you want to be if it's in a rougher condition, a larger boat,
That's right.
So, okay, so I got to follow that up. After '97, we came out with, in the year 2000, guess what we came out with? The Catch 2000.
The Catch 2000. And
that was an original name, wasn't it?
Yeah. But it worked, and it was a sub-walking bait that was a huge hit because, for those of us that were using the 38s and the 28s back then, which you don't even make those models anymore, I don't think.
We still can. They're just a custom. But when we came out with the Catch 2000, we said, how neat would this be to brand? We'll circulate one lure and circulate to a bunch of our captains and pro staff and catch 2,000 species, and that's what we did with that. And a lot of folks don't realize we did that.
No, I did not. I did not really. I know.
So,
Pooch is big about trying to catch a lot of
different species
on one plug, just so he can say.
So the Catch 2000 was good because what was unique about the Catch 2000, it was the first real suspending style bait that L&S Mirrolure ever came out with. And that was the popular category, In the day. In the day, it was like, hey, we can use a hard bait. It's not a floater, so our hookup ratio is going to be much better, and we can fish the shallows,
It was a great bait, and when it seemed like surface walkers may have been too much, it was the logical choice to go to. Because before we'd use 7Ms, or like I said, 38s or something like that, something that would just get under the surface and pop back up, or have a little slower sink rate. But the Catch 2000 was big, and then I'm assuming the last one,
you know what the next 2006 the Mirror Dean, and then we dean people to death. It was dogging people to death and then dean people to death.
That Mirror Dean. Honest to goodness. I mean, there's been a lot of brands that have tried to duplicate that, and you don't even pay them any mind because you guys are so strong in that category. I mean, you really blow their doors off. And I'm going to tell you something right now. I was going to tell you off air, but I'm going to tell you right now. Do you know how many people approach me and go, "Hey, man, you got to talk that guy at Mirrolure into building a 27 MR heavy Dean.
Yeah.
We have to have it. We're fishing current. Yeah. Why don't we have it?" And I go like this. I go, "Well, I'm going to go up there, but right now they probably need to make 10,000 of something else. So I'll do my level best and lobby for it." But they're all waiting for my answer next Monday night on Monday Night
will
Instagram.
Definitely come out with a heavy version of the 27 MR. Mark my words. We've been hearing folks talk about it. It's as easy as making a lead change and maybe a mold change to the cavity. So we can do it. It's just a matter of time because there is a purpose, you know. I mean, right now folks are having to take, suspend dots or lead tape.
And they put it on the hooks and
to get that to weight because many of the markets there in the Carolinas, that current runs fast and they want that lure to get down.
Oh, yeah. It's a great tool. I could see it being big time popular. All right, let's switch gears once again. Paul Brown. Now, I think our audience deserves to hear this story because, I mean, you look at this thing, you're looking at this thing, and you're seriously?
It doesn't look quite as good as a Mirrolure, does it?
Yeah, you're like, wow, why would we go backwards? Why would we go from this beautifully, I mean, artisan bait that is so well put together to this?
That's exactly the way I felt before we owned the company. I would talk to our Texas Pro staff, and obviously the Paul Brown back, 10 years ago, even 20, 30 years ago, it was primarily a Texas bait.
It was.
Invented by Mr. Paul Brown. It was called the Corky back then. And over the years, I'd hear and read so many articles talking about the Corky and talking about the Corky Paul Brown. And it was like, what is so great about this lure? We've got so many different plugs that should catch us just as many fish. But you know what? They just didn't.
They didn't.
Any true trophy trout fisherman in Texas, that's a lot of T's.
Yeah.
They're throwing a Paul Brown original, a Fat Boy, a Devil.
Yeah.
That's what they were throwing 30 years ago and even to the day.
When I was 25, 26, again, Larry Mastery kind of, that was the shop that I used to go to. It was just old school, South St. Pete. I'd drive down there, and I saw the Corkies in there. This is, a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I bought one or two of them, and I fished them, and I couldn't catch anything. I couldn't catch a cold with those things. But what I didn't know is I was not experienced enough to understand that the baits had to be worked super slow.
And typically in cold water, and typically in cold water situations. But we purchased the Paul Brown company 10 years ago, almost to this date. And when we first purchased the company, we went over, Paul and his wife Phyllis were selling the lures out of their garage, and they only had 2 retail stores. So it was like a manufacturer's dream where, they only could make so many lures, and all you heard was we can never get the color or the model that we wanted. So, we said, well, we can do this, I mean, we're pretty good at manufacturing. So, and they were too, but they just didn't have the manpower, to do that. So, this was 10 years ago. And, I remember doing a show up in the Carolinas, and, we had just purchased the company, and this older gentleman walks up to me and he says, here you got Paul Brown. I said, how did you hear about Paul Brown all the way up here in the Carolinas? He looked at me and he said, son, I'm a trout fisherman. That's what he said.
It's
the truth. There's like a cult following. And what's great now is over the last 10 years, through the help of Flats Class, teaching folks that when and how to use the Paul Brown, now we see on some of the social media, they say, Paul Brown's just not for Texas anymore. Some of the Carolina folks are doing, and we've sold more Paul Browns in the North Carolina market this year than we ever have, and into Florida as well.
Wow. It's a remarkable bait. And when you did acquire the company, I remember you're like, hey, we bought Paul Brown. When that happened, I was 20 years older since my first introduction to it. Now I understood how to fish them. I went out there and I threw just the original. I wasn't throwing anything but the original. And I caught so many fish out there on the south side of Tarpon Key. It was probably like November, December. It was a good cold front. I remember calling you. I called Buccinelli. I was like, I don't know, man. These things are going to kill 27 MRs because no one's going to buy one anymore. Everyone's going to buy this bait. Yeah. I mean, it's that good. It's just,
I remember you doing a show with Captain Jimmy Huddleston, and it shows. Jimmy was up front. You were pulling him around, and you said, I could see it in his eyes. He had that bait. You said, we're going to do a Paul Brown show. And he looked at that bait, an iconic guide around this area, knew exactly where the fish are. And I'm sure he thought, what are we going to be using to catch these fish? We're going to be using this. And I could see him playing with the lure over the side as you were pulling him along to say, like, how am I going to fish this? He was trying to see how the lure was going to work. And it was one of the best trout shows that I think Flats Class have ever done. I mean, as far as trophy fish.
And Jimmy Huddleston's like a fourth or fifth generation waterman in the Pinellas County area.
He's almost like redneck like me, don't you think?
He is definitely that way, and he has the most infectious smile.
Yeah.
But when I showed him those baits, he was like, really? I was like, and listen, when I tell you how you got to work it, you're even going to be more disappointed in me because you're going to have to work this, where basically you flash, wait. And that's how you fish this. Mm-hmm. I mean, because you got to give it time to glide all the way left, stopped, and glided all the way right. I was like, but when you see the reaction, and I mean, he has an unbelievable reputation for producing big trout. He knows where everything lives in St. Joseph Sound up there in that clear watered Tarpon Springs zone. I think he told me, he goes, I'm calling Bachnik and I'm going to order a bunch of these.
He did, and he was. What a great show! It was great to put Paul Brown on TV and then put him on the map.
Yeah, we got him on the map with that show.
Started selling some in Florida really quickly.
We sure did, and to this day, I still have people say, I would have never used that bait, but the prominent eye on it and the very slow sink suspending behavior of that bait and the ability for that bait to glide so far. Yeah. It doesn't like stop and do that. I mean, it really glides.
You've got to let that slack in that line.
You do. You have to throw that tip back at it is what it there's a little bit of skill to it, and the Texas guys totally understand.
But what a bite, when
it's a thump.
That's what Mr. Paul Brown told me. It's a Corky thump.
It's
is what they really hitting that bait. Even with slack in the line, you can feel that bite. So,
all right, that's kind of a hybrid type of bait, the Paul Brown. But after having so much traction in hard baits and your DNA, and you guys really are. There's no one that is the gold standard in hard baits for saltwater like Mirrolure. You guys decided to complement it all by coming out with a line of soft baits.
Yeah, it's not a huge portion of our business, but we did complement it with a couple unique baits. Our Little John, it looks like a little tube shape. We grew up throwing the old Love Lure, in the man stingray grub, and it's just a twitch bait. So the Little John sells real well for us. We have that in a couple different sizes, and paddle tail, and then a 5-inch jerk bait. So We've got several
major
models.
profiles.
Yeah, we really do, but it just sort of adds to the Mirrolure name. We're very proud of our soft plastics, but it's still a small portion of our business.
Well, the other thing, the competitors that do make those soft baits, they're known for the soft baits, and they take little soirees, if that's what you want to call it, into the hard bait market, and they try to come up with hard baits that will kind of compete with you, but they really don't. I mean, you guys are the classic muscle car. I mean, everybody knows if there's a hard bait that's going to, and there are some impressive baits that are out there that they try to sell for saltwater, but you guys are at the right price point. You make the right profiles. You've done everything the right way. I mean, I call it the Gran Torino effect. It's like you're the Clint Eastwood on a street full of newbies that are trying to do it, and they just can't. They really can't get into your sandbox. I mean, you guys really dominate that.
It's interesting over the years. I used to get really, I've been doing this for 32 years, and I used to really get upset when I saw what I considered a close knockoff or copy. And really, some mentors in the industry always said, would tell me, Eric, don't worry about it. People want the original. So if you stick with that and build the original, folks understand that you were the first one in the market, and they will probably be loyal to you. And I really fully, truly believe that to today is we've got such a good, loyal following from Mirrolure users. And I tell folks every day, we know that you have a choice in fishing lures, but we really, really, really appreciate you using our products.
Oh no, you guys definitely have the Yeti effect there. It's like, there's a lot of knockoffs, but I mean, if you're going to a party, you're showing up with a Yeti, not an Arctic.
Absolutely.
Okay, here's the thing, and I know it's your favorite thing to talk about it, but it's also your favorite frustration, and that has to be the custom market that you guys have created. I mean, you guys have been doing it for a long time, but now I really think that this thing is what keeps you relevant moving into 2020 and beyond, because there are people that, they might look at this plug. Now, I have a connection to this plug because I've been fishing this plug. I'm a 55-year-old man. I've been fishing this plug most of my life. I know it works. I believe in it. But when you're competing against brands that make perfect emulations of fish, it's tough to convince a newbie coming to the sport that this is every bit as good, if not better.
True.
So when you started the custom market, now people could put together a couple of different colors, and they could have and there was a reward. It's like, wow, I've got something here that I kind of created, I've taken ownership of, and it's catching fish.
Yeah.
It's turned into a monster.
It really has changed our industry, our business, I should say. We started making some custom colors back in the 80s, actually, for 52s and TTs, which are our saltwater products in the Texas market. And they were used basically to help retailers have things other than the box stores, specifically out there, Academy. But things have really changed now. Over the last, I'm going to say 8 years, we started a policy where we would make as few as 60 pieces. We would make a custom color, and since our Mirrodine is one of our most popular baits, is our most popular bait. That's where we see most of the custom colors. So for 60 pieces, you can have what insert material we stock, different insert materials, different pad prints, different colorations, tail dips. There's so many different variations, and now we're making thousands of custom colors, and it really has changed our business, and it's caused some issues with supply issues with our standard colors. So we're really having to institute a few new rules, if you will, in the game to try to remain profitable, because the customs definitely slow us down. In production.
It's I still feel like it revitalizes your brand. It makes it so current. I think it gets people enticed that in the saltwater inshore world, everyone wants to throw soft baits. Yeah. It's like, I want to throw Z-Man. I want to do this. I want to do that. I catch more fish. I do this. But with the customs, they're throwing hard baits. I mean, they are throwing hard baits like they've never thrown before. And
I just hope it continues, CA, and I know you've done an excellent job with your custom color Mirrolures.
We have,
my goodness.
And I'm sure they all have. But
your names are the best, though. I mean, the dude. I mean,
I've got to thank Papa for helping me out with these names and fireside chats that I have with him in the evening time. We come up with some doggone good names.
Very good names.
But the funny thing is a manufacturer will knock off, something like this. Is this the 49?
It is.
It's the 49. They'll knock off something like that, and but they can't knock off those custom colors because they just can't knock them off. And I think that's the beauty of it in itself. It's just got to figure that stuff out a little bit more. But I'll tell you what, I think it
gives us more SKUs too.
It's truly
genius.
A
lot of the smaller retailers, it gives them a competitive edge. They can order the colors that are specific for their area, and go on social media and say, hey, listen, we built these for the Neuse River here in North Carolina,
That's right.
or South Carolina, what have you.
I saw it firsthand.
and they're pushing them, and it really turns out well.
They sell out overnight.
Everybody wins. It really is.
Yeah,
It's a true win.
It's amazing.
And it seems like the end user surely just absolutely loves fishing them as well.
I think it's the most genius thing that you've ever come up with here. For an old school guy, a redneck exec, I think it's the most genius thing you've ever come up with.
Well, thank you, CA. I hope I can manage one other in the next 30 years.
I just think that you made hard baits cool again. That's what you did. I mean,
neat.
A few quick hits. I know because we're going into the OT.
I'm
here.
really enjoying this.
Oh, it's good. All right, I want you to you don't have to give me one word answers, but I want honest answers. Shelby Bachnik, is she the heir apparent to fill your spot one day?
Ooh, I don't know. I tell you what, she knows the product line real well. I think we can make a hole for her here in L&S Bait Company. So I would say yes.
I'm just wanting to know because I want to know if I need to be really nice to her and start, paying more attention.
She does a great job for us, that's for sure. So,
all right, here's another one. Best selling profile, past or present, all time for Mirrolure. Past or present?
It's got to be the Mirrodine.
Yeah.
It's a pilchard whitebait shad. It's
just the perfect profile.
Just it, and it works so well in a suspending twitch bait category. For yeah. One
of the things I like to, and this is before you came out with the skin series. There are so many brands out there that try to make something that looks exactly like nature.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll make a perfect pinfish, perfect pilchard. They'll make it perfect. No red eye or nothing. It's perfect. It's a perfect imitation of what swims. If you got 10,000 pieces of bait swimming around and you throw a perfect imitation and that's the zone you're working your plug through, well, you got a 1 in 10,000 shot, I always like to say, of catching that fish. But if you throw woody woodpecker or something that's pink or the colors that I think fish see in a contrast moment where they can pick it out and it's just an easy prey, I believe they work better most of the time. But then you came out with the skin series. How is that working for you?
It sold really well for us. The skin series is our natural take on a pilchard or whitebait.
The pilchard is absolutely.
Yeah, the pinfish.
I feel like we should be putting them in a chum bat for some of these guys and swinging them out there or throw them in the live well.
So true. So we added to the line. It's doing really well right now, and we even added a mullet. So we'll see how it goes, but. For the moment, it's selling real well for us, and we're hearing a lot of good reports. People catching fish with them.
I talk to your retailers all the time because I get a lot of opportunities, especially in the winter, to seminars and do things like this, and they all tell me they love that series. It's selling crazy good. Where do you see Mirrolure, or what does Mirrolure look like 10 years from now?
That's a good question, CA. Well, we recently, 3 weeks ago, we purchased LB Huntington Drone, which is actually, that company's been around since 1917. So it's even older than L&S Bait Company.
I didn't realize that. I've always known that as a kingfish.
And it is a kingfish spoon. It's probably been knocked off or copied more than any other fishing lure around. I mean, it's an iconic brand. It's got some iconic products, so we added that under the L&S umbrella. So I told my office manager, my comptroller here a couple weeks ago, I said, that's it, no more. We're not going to buy any more companies. I said, this really took a lot out of us, because we personally went up there and moved it back on. My twin brother, Frank, and myself and Ray, so there's three of us moved.
Trailers and tooling and everything.
We did the whole thing, and and it gives us a way to see how they were producing these baits. We don't want to try to change anything. When you buy and pay really good money for a company, we don't want to change how they're making the product. We want the product to continue to be the same or get better.
I can give you lots of examples, and I don't want to name names, but of companies that have just change everything, and then it kills the brand.
Yeah. So 10 years from now, I'd like to see. I believe our company will be about the same size. About the same sales. Which will be absolutely fantastic for us and our employees. I hope our resource continues to stay strong. I guess that's my largest concern. I think if our resource and our water conditions remain good, I see the company doing really, really well.
Good. All right, 2 more questions. One, what plug does Eric Bachnik reach for speckled trout fishing? Of all the lures you have at your fingertips.
My favorite's topwater. I absolutely love the she-dog. I just love throwing a topwater. I recognize I'm probably going to catch fewer fish, but normally that larger trout eats that topwater, and I just love to see the strike.
Okay. That's good to know. I'm going to probably put a couple extra she-dogs up underneath the gunwale of that Marquesa now. All right, last question. If you weren't heading up L&S Baits, what would Eric Bachnik be doing these days?
I think I'd own a restaurant. I would like to.
Really?
Yeah, I think I'd be a chef. You know, I got this big belly. I love to eat, so it would probably be in the cooking industry somewhere, you know.
Hopefully Southern Comfort Food.
Yeah, that's probably exec. What I would be. So
I've sampled some of your smoked kingfish and stuff you brought out on the boat before.
I really enjoy cooking, and I love seafood and love doing the seafood boils and just it's a lot of fun. So I guess just off the cuff, that's what came to my mind.
That's good, and that's why I wanted to throw those quick hitters out at you. I appreciate.
Whoa! I got to get a question in here.
Okay.
If you were to choose one Mirrolure to go trout fishing, what would it be?
If I were going to choose one, it would probably be the Surface Walker 2. I just wouldn't choose that one. I'd probably choose the Top Dog Junior. Yeah, the lower frequency one. I love throwing topwater, and I've had so much luck with your bone. The bone one really always does me right. In fact, it was the inspiration behind us doing the custom color, which was the dude. And all we changed really from your original bone was we put a cocoa back on it, which they don't see the back, but they do see the cocoa belly. And I just felt like that gave us a little bit better silhouette on the darker days when it really matters. And I think they see it. You know, trout, they sit there, they have killer spatial awareness. And I think they can see that darker contrast a little further away, so it might draw a strike give you an extra 3 or 4 feet of range that you might not have with just a white belly bait or something like that, where you got to walk it right over the top of them. So that's my rationale. Whether that's true or not, I've got you to believe it. You're thinking about it right now. So I want to thank you again, my friend.
Thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Well, and everything you do for us. I mean, you've done us a great service for so long. I feel like we're damn near married, buddy.
Yeah, it's a good team. It's Flats Class and Mirrolure. There's no doubt about it.
It's been going a
Paul Brown.
long time, and the brands that you got. But I appreciate you being number 10, the Redneck Exec on Captain CA's Blacklist on the Flats Class podcast. And really want to thank Yeti, Papa's Pilar, and the Florida Cracker Trading Company for helping bring this to all of you. Until next time, that's it.